And it's exactly done the same way on the Swiss banking card than on the French banking card. And you end up with a hexadecimal address where the actual card data is stored. So this is, let me first explain, the card is divided into two parts in the end. It's more or less a memory card. It has no crypto functionality on it. It's a very plain card in the end. It was designed in 1983 and wasn't changed since then. And that's at least now 23 years ago, so quite a long time for technology. So the card memory is divided into two parts. It's a read-only memory part, and it's a write-read memory part. And the read-only memory part is that what we are interested in the first place, as we will see. So we start reading the memory content with this command. So such a pity you can't read that stuff now. But you can see it's identical to the French card, and I have already formatted it in a certain way. So sorry. So what we found by simply applying the steps described on the French website to the Swiss postcard was that it worked one-to-one. Nothing had to be changed. It simply worked exactly the same way. The data structures are the same, addresses are the same. Of course, memory content is different. That's true, yeah. Okay, so why are we interested in this very special read-only memory? You know, 1983, when the card was actually designed, having all terminals online was simply wishful thinking. It simply wasn't possible, technically not possible, or much too expensive to do that. So you need a method for the card to authenticate itself offline. So the card must be authenticated itself. And this is done with these read-only memory. Memory is divided, the read-only memory is divided itself into two parts. A cipher part and a plaintext part. And the whole system uses a very simplified form of digital signature. So you have a plaintext data, you encrypt the plaintext data with an RSA private key and put the result, this is what I call the ciphertext, onto the card as well. And now every terminal simply has to have the public RSA key hardwired into it, and then it can read both memory parts, decipher or decrypt the cipher part, and compare the result with the plaintext already stored on the card. And if these two parts match, the card itself is authenticated. The system, well, it's not really good, but of course everyone immediately knows it all depends on key size. And we will see that this is the problem, here. Now the people using this card will say, well, this can't be. I have to enter a PIN. What about the PIN? The PIN is a complete fake in the end. Now, not a complete fake. But you don't need it for card authentication. You need it to access the writable memory part of the card. So this is where you remember where the transactions are locked. So the whole process looks like this. The card is inserted into the terminal. The terminal reads the read-only memory part, authenticates the card, and then tries to lock the transaction into the writable part of the memory, which is PIN protected. So the terminal asks you for the PIN. You enter the PIN. The transaction gets written to the memory. And if that is not possible, the transaction is simply aborted. So it's not a PIN check, but it's a simple transaction checking, a write check on the log file. And now it's clear why a full card is rendered unusable, because the transaction couldn't be written to the file. The terminal thinks you have entered probably the wrong PIN, or at least the memory is full, and if the transaction can't get locked, the transaction is aborted. So everything makes sense. But this, of course, makes it very, very simple to clone cards, because if the PIN is not actually needed to authenticate the card, or the card holder, which is the normal case, then it's very easy to clone a card. Even if we have no idea how the ciphertext gets generated or how the plaintext is formatted or whatever, we can simply read out the read-only memory. Remember, it's not pin protected. We can simply read it out, put it onto a clone card that behaves like a postcard by sending out the same memory content, and then have a command handler that allows writing to the writable memory with any pin. The French did exactly that, and they called this card a yes card, because it says, yes, the pin is fine, regardless of what you type. But of course, that's just half of the fun. You need a real card. You need someone to put in his card into your reader so that you can retrieve the data from the card. And if you're a hacker, no one is willing to put his card into your reader, you know. So this, of course, would be much more fun if we can create cards ourselves. So if we can simply break the authentication scheme of the card by having some plain text, which is the card number, the issuing date, the end date of the card, and some other stuff, and to produce the ciphertext ourselves. So what do we have to do? We have to reproduce the encipherment of the plain text, which involves getting access to the RSA private key of the card issuer. And honestly, normally you're simply stuck at that point. So if the card is protected with, let's say, a 2048-bit key, or even a 1024-bit key, you need a lot of computing power to get that to get that key factorized, or this modulus factorized. The largest RSA key I know of, or modulus I know of, that gets factorized is the 768, something like that, in a network of thousands of computers over a month. So if it's 1024-bit, you're simply stuck. You have to say, well, no way to do that. But if you analyze the card data, and I'm not going to do it here, it takes simply too much time. You can analyze the memory content. You can extract the modulus from the card. And then you can factorize the modulus, because the modulus is just 320 bits. And everyone who is into RSA encryption, we are currently discussing security of RSA 1024 bits, and discussing the security of RSA 320 bits. It's ridiculous. It took me 24 hours on a normal PC to factorize the modulus and to compute the private key of the card issuer. So that's nothing. That's not security at all. Maybe it was sufficient in 1983 when the system was designed, but it's certainly not sufficient nowadays, not with the computing power available today. So what to do with that? Cloning the card, of course, not only involves the chip content, the memory content of the chip. You also have to take care of the MAC stripe on the back of the card, depending on what you want to do with it. Most of the ATMs, especially if they're not postomats, which means specially designed for the postcard, of course only work with the MAC stripe. But there are a lot of terminals that simply work without the magstripe, with just the chip. So you can put in the card in nearly every Swiss telephone, public telephone, and it's not reading the magnetic stripe, it's just reading the chip content. So it's actually possible to create new valid cards, valid in terms of it authenticates itself the same way as a normal postcard will do. And a terminal cannot tell the difference. The card exactly looks the same, you know. Okay, when we discovered that, we thought we should apply the normal procedure of handling such stuff, and the Chaos Computer Club simply has developed a very good working method over the years in many cases that worked fine. The first rule is don't talk to the press, talk to the company involved. And in this case, it was a little bit more complicated. I'm living in Switzerland, but I'm still German. And Andi Müller-Magun, who was involved in that, and Gerrit Hellwig. We were all three aliens, and not just to the company culture. This is something that we are used to, but also from the nationality. So they simply didn't want to talk with us in the first place. So we had to get in contact with them through another company. But in the end, we get a meeting with high-ranking officials of PostFinance in Bern. And we talked to them and we explained something to them they should have known for years. Because you remember, the French had the same problem in 1989. So 4 years before we discovered that the postcard is working exactly the same way. And they said, well, thank you very much for giving us the security hints, and of course we will improve security and stuff like that. But remember, it's not only all about techniques. So it's not enough just to tell them what is wrong, but to go deeper. And this was the point when they simply quitted the talk with us. You know, if you have this card and you claim a misuse, that someone has misused your card to withdraw money or to buy things or whatever, you have signed terms of use. And the argument of the issuing bank, or in this case the PostFinance, is always the same. Our system is safe, so if there is a card misuse, you must have, intentionally or not, passed the card and the PIN to someone else, because otherwise it's not possible. And you need a very good lawyer and a lot of, you need simply a good lawyer to get at least 40 or 60% of the loss back from the PostFinance, because you can't prove you didn't pass on the PIN or you didn't pass the card. You simply can't prove it, you know. And then we told them that their legal argument in this case simply breaks down, you know. If it's possible to use the card and the card owner has done nothing wrong, because someone simply cloned his card by knowing the card number and the issuing and the end date. That's all the information you need to clone a card. Then he has not handled against the terms of use, but the system is simply insecure. So they have to rethink their refunding policy in case of card misuse. And of course, they didn't want to hear that. That's for sure. So in the end, they throw us out. And oh, sorry. So we said, okay, this can't be it. We can't simply stop here. So the normal step would be to talk to the next higher level. And at that point, we thought that PostFinance is a real bank. So then in Switzerland, you go to the so-called Eidgenössische Bankenkommission, which is the supervisor for banks in Switzerland. But they said, yeah, very interesting story, but we are simply not responsible. The PostFinance is not a bank. They are just a company allowed to deal with money. Yeah, it's a very